microphone okay? Can everyone hear me? Good morning. How is everyone today? All good? Well, first, thank you, Dataiku, for inviting me this lovely morning to give this presentation. My talk is called From 1 to 100 Users in Dataiku. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Roberto Amador. I'm a solutions architect. I've been doing that for 5 years, mostly in the healthcare industry. As you can see by my beautiful flag, I come from Mexico. So, why do I want to give this talk? Oh, what? Yeah. So I want to take you into a journey, right? A journey of how it looks like to implement Dataiku in your companies. So it usually starts with one user, and you start growing, 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 until I stop there. You get to 100 users, right? And why do I want to do this? I want you to see from my eyes what are the difficulties that you might face during your journey. And also, I want to give you some tips and tricks that you might find useful along the way. So first, as always, you need one user, right? In this case, since everyone has virtual assistants now in this age, his name is Bob, right? So Bob is going to help me introduce the concepts and what he's doing in his company to introduce Dataiku. So the first thing that Bob does, he installs Dataiku, right? He installs Dataiku in a server. And sorry about the more technical slides, but I'm a solutions architect, so I have to do an architecture slide. It's kind of like in my contract. So first, you have Dataiku in a server. That's where you install it. And then you have to the left storage, right? That's where you keep your data. To the right, you have compute, where you run your data, right? Where you get your results. So quite simple, nothing too difficult. And to the right, you have Bob, of course, user number 1. So he shows Dataiku to the team. Everyone likes it. They say, OK, it's quite easy to make a model. It's just click, 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 model, right? And I always tell my users, yes, just click, click, click. But you kind of need to ask us what the model is actually doing in the background. But technicalities. Then what is next? The manager of Bob sees it and says, like, I like this tool. Can we do a proof of concept? I say, yeah, sure. We can do a proof of concept, right? So now it's more than one user. You have 3 more users that is helping Bob do a proof of concept with a real use case. So what is the first thing that Bob and the team will need? Data, right? I think other presenters already mentioned data. The usual suspects here is that you get the information from a database or from a data warehouse, or you can get it from cloud storage like S3 or Blobs, or from your HDFS cluster. Nothing difficult, right? So update on the architecture slide. To the left. To the left, you have cloud and database on the storage side. And the first tip of the day will be keep things separate. Dataiku is a great tool when you want to orchestrate and collaborate together. But it's not a great tool if you want to keep all your storage and all your computation in one place. So first, we're going to separate storage to the left using a data warehouse, a database, HDFS cluster. And then I'll introduce how we can separate the computational side of it. So the POC was a success. His managers, good job, Bob. Now this looks like a promising tool that we can implement in our company. I want you to make a service out of it. Bob says, OK, how can I make a service out of it? There seems like there's now a team on me that I need to provision this type of Dataiku technology. So the first thing I will tell Bob that you need to do, more environments, right? So far, he has been working on just one server. That server has everything installed. But what happens now that Dataiku is going to release version 6.0? You need to do an upgrade. Now, you don't want to do an upgrade with people working on the production server. You first want to do an upgrade on the development server, see if it crashes, and if it doesn't, then you do the upgrade on production. Because if you do it and it crashes, a lot of angry people. Next thing, you want to monitor. You want to monitor 2 things, basically, at this moment. How users use Dataiku, so you can see and track how many users are using specific functions, how are they logging in during the day. And also, you want to measure how your server is doing, like how many resources are you using, how many data sets are you using. That's the best thing. The second, what I like to call peace of mind, you want to have backups and restores. Same thing, if something bad happens, you want to back up, you want to restore. And one of my favorites, disaster recovery. Yeah, you can have backups and restores, but you need a plan to know how to use them when something bad happens, right? So we're going to implement this in our architecture slides. So we have those lovely pink boxes on top of Dataiku, as you can see. And I don't know if it's so easy to see, but it's like a tandem. They have different boxes behind Dataiku, and that is for me to represent the different servers that you might have, so development, production, QA. So the next tip, automate. So far, you can say, OK, I'm just going to install Dataiku, make a new server, do it myself. Don't do that. It's better from the beginning to put yourself a task to automate everything. Because there's nothing better than you just can click, and have Data IQ 1 hour later than saying, OK, I have to put my whole day aside just to have Data IQ on my server. So far, everything is good. Something from personal experience, the service went down at 3 a.m., but since everything was automated, it was just a click, and everything went back up. I went back to sleep, so recommend. Now it appears that you are getting more users, Bob. 50, wow, that's more than I have. So users are getting a little bit angry. Things are getting slow. What can that be? So Bob, every time that has a problem that users complain when Data IQ is slow, he basically makes the server bigger, right? And it works. But that has a limitation. That's what we call vertical scaling. Basically, we make the server bigger. But that has a finite problem. You cannot just make it bigger every time. For that, we have clustering. The two usual suspects in this case, usually Spark and Kubernetes, which I can recommend in using Data IQ. It integrates quite neatly. And I want to add the next slide to explain about clustering and why everyone's talking about it and they say it's so great. So I might say it a little bit simplistic, but I hope everyone gets the idea. So in a normal computer, you do parallel computing, right? So you have one task, and basically what you do, you run your task on your computer. So your computer has all the resources, and whenever it's available, it runs them, and you get the results. Now, what happens with clustering or distributed computing? Basically, you can have 3 or more servers, and basically you cut the task in little chunks, and you send them to the servers that have available resources for you to use. Then each server runs a task, even if it's just a small part, and everything comes together at the end so you can get your results. Now, what's the nice thing about this? Data IQ at this moment can live just as a one server, right? And you have your cluster, and Data IQ will only tell the cluster, run this, run this, run this, and no longer depend on just the one server. So we add this to the architecture slides. We have Spark, Local, and Kubernetes, right? Everything looks fine. The next step is HDFS. If you want to use distributed computing in Data IQ, start from the HDFS connection. I learned that already when everything was implemented, so don't be like me, use it from the beginning if you think you're going to need it. And truly, you don't lose anything from using it from the beginning, to be honest. Wow. So users are happy, they can work together, and everything is fine. So Roberto, you said, what is the next step? What is 100 users? So 100 users, that's basically when you have a project, right, in Data IQ, and the output starts to give results that are important for your business. Say, Roberto, that's great, huh? Then Data IQ has fulfilled its role. Say, yes. The problem now is, what happens if people want to update the results, right? There's other teams now that depend on those results, and what will happen with them if something goes wrong when they update. Okay, so for that, Data IQ has an answer. And that's the automation node. Basically, it's quite similar to the Data IQ that you have been working on since the beginning, but it's made for a more reliable and structured Data IQ. So not everyone has access, and basically what you do, when you have a project that is already ready from prime time, you packed it up, put it in the automation node, and it just keeps on running so that users or projects that rely on the output of Data IQ can take the output from there and not from the one that is continually being upgraded by your users, right? So now this is the update. As you can see, the previous Data IQ is called design node, and I've added the automation node, and it has the same things, the pink boxes and the different environments, because you still need to have those, even if it's a different instance. Good. So a little bit to finish. I want to talk about the pillars of architecture. Again, I'm an architect, so it's kind of my bread and butter from every day. The first thing, security. You should always think about security. Something I like to say is that security should be like an onion, right? It should be in layers. Because the more layers you have, the more the hackers will cry. Performance and scalability. Like I said, Data IQ is a way for orchestration and for collaboration. It can still do the computational side and the storage for you, but it's not a great idea. Try to separate roles. So push as much work as you can. If you want to have storage in something reliable, put it on the cloud. If you want to have computational scale infinitely, just put it in a cluster. Availability and recoverability. Tongue twister. Automate as much as you can. I cannot say this enough. From the beginning, it can be kind of like a big investment to automate everything and think about all the possibilities and have everything tested. But once you have it, it's something that requires minimal tweaking at the end, but really gives you a lot, especially in the peace of mind. Efficiency and operations. Make sure to keep an eye on everything that you're doing, right? So make sure that you have dashboards for how users use Dataiku. Make sure you have dashboards on how your servers are running, how your cluster, your database is being occupied. I can say the more you know about your own environment, the better you can tailor it for your users, and the more users that will be happy with your service. So I think I end a little bit early, but thank you for your time. You can see my contact information, but I'll be on the floor if you have further questions. And yeah, I hope to see you up there.